understanding what outcomes they're looking to achieve, understanding what pains, issues, challenges and risks they face, and understanding what their goals and aspirations are absolutely crucial, because that's how they will define value.
The question is from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Graham.
Hi, I'm Ricky.
And today the question is, why do buyers care about impact, not product? So Ricky, this sounds like, are we talking about those times when people find themselves they're perhaps caught in a price conversation, or they're perhaps being compared to a competitor and having to defend their position? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, in essence. I mean, this comes from a keynote that I did recently around effectively product selling is dead. And it's not that products aren't important, but it's not what customers care about.
Yeah.
The fact is, customers are ultimately using your product or your service, your offer, as a means to their end. Whereas we think it's all about our product.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's kind of the key thing here. I mean, we look at this kind of through three lenses. You know, if you're focused on your product so much, the features and the benefits, and because what salesperson isn't kind of enthusiastic about their product or service?
That's kind of what we'll get brought up on as well, isn't it? You learn sales, you learn features and benefits.
Well, of course, yeah, and then advantages in the middle if you get the bonus version. But fundamentally, that's all intrinsic. It's not about the customer. So, you know, we get lost, and then, of course, you're in a price conversation more often than not. Or you're definitely in a position where now you've given them all the ammunition to go compare. I felt like I needed to sing that. But go compare against others. And a lot of that work can be done online, or even probably by AI in today's world. But the reality is, if you want to create a fight for yourself, talk about your product.
Yeah.
If you want to create an easier way forward, talk about them and what's important to them. And that's kind of the premise that we're looking at.
Yeah. So part of it is that problem that we're perhaps leading with product stuff, the features, the benefits, all that kind of stuff. What else then is at the core of the problem with this?
Well, the other element is that you think it's about your product. Well, actually, the reality is customers don't buy one-to-one, particularly in a B2B world. And we are talking in practical terms, we're talking about complex sales, B2B environments. The reality is there is not one buyer. So you have people that are concerned with what are the economics of this. You have people concerned with what's the technical aspects of this. You have people concerned with will this solve my pain? Will this address my problem? Will this allow me to grow or take this opportunity that's available to us? And therefore, actually, they're not interested in the product and what it can do or your solution. That's for the business buyer to go, this will do the job. The technical buyer will go, it's fit for purpose. And the economic buyer will, have we got the budget? So each of them often have potentially conflicting needs, because I want the gold level service as the business buyer, and the economic buyer goes, but you got enough for the silver service, or even worse, you might have the bronze service. But then you're into what's the best solution we can get for what you're prepared to spend. And, different solutions will require different elements of that. So complexity in terms of the buying process also makes it harder to sell product.
Yeah, so things are more complex from working out who our different stakeholders are, different buyers are.
Who's involved in this?
Who's involved with it becomes much more complex. And then I guess there's that link then with how do you demonstrate value to that different range of people?
Yes, because actually when you think about it, what matters to me as an economic buyer, I'm not so bothered. I mean, clearly I want it to do what it says on the tin for you, but actually I'm going, is this going to cause us any budgetary issues? Can we even afford it? Can we find the money to pay for this? Whereas a business buyer is going to be going, well, it needs to solve these particular problems. It needs to address these particular issues. If it can overcome these things, then all of a sudden, and often, we when you end up in a price conversation, most buyers are actually trying to get value for money. The government departments, one of the things they have is value for money. Well, is that about cheap? Is it all about the cost, or is it about actually, because you can waste a load of money buying the wrong solution because it fit the price. But unless it addresses the needs of the business buyer and the technical buyer's happy, then all of a sudden you've got a challenge.
Yeah, I've always found that concept of value for money interesting. What does it really mean?
Yeah, define value.
Yeah, because if it becomes about price, presumably from a competitive point of view, we just go in. So I'm going to quote, it's this.
Race to the bottom.
You're going to go lower, and so we carry on with that, yeah.
And that's always the problem that salespeople will have, and it's the quickest way you're going to erode margins. So if you can flip the script and have a conversation that's about what matters to you, Graham, what are the issues and problems you're facing? Tell me about what you do and how you do it, because I can now look for opportunities where we can help address some of those things. And actually, I become more of a trusted advisor because I'm interested in what you want, not what I want to sell you. And that's an important distinction because the reality is it's easy to sell product, particularly if you're cheap and cheaper than a competitor until somebody else comes along. One of my clients at the moment, they're in a real problem because they've got certain markets being invaded by cheap knockoffs.
Yeah.
So, there are countries in the world that basically find a good idea, copy it, and then flood the market with a cheaper alternative. Now, that's really hard when you've built a business on products based on years of R&D, value that you've invested in your product in terms of development of it, getting it to market, and then somebody else comes along and copy all your hard work. And now all of a sudden you're fighting against a margin erosion problem.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was with a client group a few months ago, and one of their marketing guys was talking about some of this stuff with their product, and was talking about essentially cheap product from China was the phrase that was mentioned. And he went, the problem is, he said, it's not cheap product either anymore. He said because their ability to copy product means that what we think of as cheap and therefore isn't fit for purpose, they were finding increasingly wasn't true. It was still fit for purpose at a cheaper price, might not have been quite as good as their product.
Well, just look what they're doing in the automotive market.
Yeah.
They've created very good product and pushing it out to market.
Yeah.
And in certain markets, Tesla were an established brand doing really well, and all of a sudden their sales have just disappeared because the Chinese alternatives have come in and taken that. And I think, that's about understanding value. I mean, clearly that's not necessarily a commercial or a complex sell as we would talk about it, but it is still an evidence where the Chinese ability to copy and create equally good products is there. And if
definitely.
They can create it en masse, then all of a sudden you've got a problem.
Yeah, so the idea then is to try and turn the conversation more towards value in some shape or form, understanding what the customer's outcomes are, what their goals are. What else are we needing to consider here then, Ricky?
Well, I think you're right. I think certainly understanding what outcomes they're looking to achieve, understanding what pains, issues, challenges and risks they face, and understanding what their goals and aspirations are absolutely crucial because that's how they will define value.
Yeah.
So it's not for us to define value. It's for us to help understand what the reality is that they're facing and how our products and services, our solution, can meet their needs, their musts and wants.
Yeah. This is your pains, gains, and automobiles.
Pains, gains, and automobiles is how
it's part of that. Yeah,
I can. That rolls off the tongue. Yeah. Clearly, it's wrong, but it is about pains.
Yeah,
it is about gains, which is aspirations, but it's also about just a simple understanding of what they do and how they do it, because there might be opportunities to improve that in the way in which we can provide solutions and solve problems for them.
Yeah.
So there might not be a problem they're aware of, and we go, well, what if we can make that quicker, leaner, more efficient, more effective? What impact would that have? And all of a sudden, what you found? Value.
Yeah, and I guess the other challenge with all this, again, back to your multiple stakeholders, you're trying to work that out for more than one person whose value is likely to be different for each of them. Might be some common themes that go across it. There's also something about helping the customer to, I assume, make the right decision, a decision that they're not going to lose face with in front of their colleagues, peers, that's going to get them and presumably other stakeholders the value they're all looking for.
Yeah, and I think that individual needs piece is right and not easy.
Yeah.
Because often they might be competing or conflicting. So I'm the business buyer. I need my team equipping, but actually the economic buyer goes, well, that's fine, but you can do it for this much money. And you go, well, that's only going to get me part way there. It's back to, is it a gold, silver, bronze type approach? And so therefore you end up with this conflict internally. And what you're trying to do is find some harmony around, if you can quantify value, it takes the price conversation out a little bit. Clearly, there's always going to be, you've got to find the money at the end of the day. Yeah. But it's easier to have that argument if the commercial logic and the business arguments stack up, providing it's fit for purpose. Then that's a much stronger argument, which is about, for me, I always go, in practical terms, step one is build strong relationships. Find out who these key stakeholders are, who's got a perspective, a view, a want to be involved in this as a potential outcome, and build a trusting relationship with them. Because if you don't, having the conversation about what's important to you becomes harder, because they're going to be perhaps, well, I'm going to meet what you doing, you're selling to me here.
Yes, yeah.
When in reality, if you've got a good relationship, and relationships take a bit of time, you need to invest some time to do that. And depending on the size and scale of the deals that you're doing, well, that will determine whether it's worth your time and investment.
Yes, yeah.
But fundamentally, you need to be in tune with them and what's important to them.
Yeah.
And part of that building trust is if you start your conversation with what matters to them and not what matters to you. Because as an inexperienced sales guy, I remember somebody would say the buzzword, I've got a solution, I want to sell this. And the reality is you got to pause, which is hard for me. You got to pause and allow them to do the majority of the talking, because that's where you're going to do most of your learning. All you're doing is kind of controlling the conversation a little bit that goes, okay, so why does that matter, and what's important, and what's the impact? What's the cost of doing that? What's the cost of doing nothing? All of that helps you to build a picture that goes, are we even in the game here? So before I pitch anything, the question is, sounds like a podcast. The question to consider is, are we even able to help? Because you can really enhance your trust if you can say, look, you've got this, but it's not us.
Yes.
I know that's hard for salespeople to walk away from, because they're desperate to get quota and they're desperate to get a deal, but they will build so much trust in doing that.
Yeah, and you used the phrase earlier about being almost trusted advisor with people. And I guess, again, that complexity of trying to do that with 2, 3, 4, 5 potentially different stakeholders.
Yeah, and guess what? In organisations that we deal with, some of these multinationals, it might be more than that.
Yes.
And you can almost feel like you're selling to a committee of people.
Yeah.
But the reality is, the question I always go is, who could have a say, both helpfully and unhelpfully, in our ability to do this deal?
Yeah.
And you could argue that's the same whether you're selling ideas internally as well, by the way, because selling a product is no different to selling an idea. So if I want, the board to sponsor a particular project or initiative, I've still got to do the stakeholder analysis. I've still got to work out who's got a skin in the game, who does this affect, who's going to suffer, who's going to gain, and manage all the politic elements around that. Otherwise, whether it's a deal or whether it's an idea that I'm trying to sell, I'm going to come up against some resistance.
Yeah, so there's something about building stronger relationships, building trust is part of that. You talked about, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you talked about kind of about questioning more and listening more than regurgitating features and benefits. What else then do we need to, what other tips have you got that can be helpful in these situations?
Well, I think if you do those first two bits, that then opens the opportunity to match your solution. So you can demonstrate that you can help them do what they do more effectively. You can help them address, solve, or mitigate a particular problem. You can help them to achieve their goals more quickly or more efficiently, more effectively. You can get them to where they need to get to. It could be a combination of all of those, by the way.
Yeah.
But you've got to be in a position where, can I keep my powder dry just long enough? Because actually, it brings me to an example where I was talking to a client. We were working with a team, key account managers, and they're going, our products are great. And I go, yeah, they are. I said, your customers don't care. What do you mean they don't care? And it was like I'd literally, I'd insulted them and their product. And I'm going, everybody knows your product is high quality. It has to be to survive in the environment. And they're growing. They're doing fantastically well. But at the end of the day, what does your customer really want? What do you mean? I said, what do they want your product available to them so they can then sell it on? Or are they looking for growth, perhaps? Are they looking for more revenue? Are they looking for more profit? Are they looking to enter a market that your product or service can help them enter? And they went, oh, so it's not about product then, is it? And the key thing is they didn't know because they were focused on product, really passionate about it. And I have no issue with that whatsoever. But actually the customer doesn't care whether it's product A, product B or product C if it helps them achieve their goals.
Yeah.
And I think that's the crucial bit here is that we think it's about our product. And guess what? We're trained to sell. We're trained to position our product. We're trained to, in the old days, as when we were growing up, long time ago, black and white days, it was, features, advantages, benefits. But none of that started with the customer in mind. It started with us in mind. And that's, for me, it is about flipping the script. I'm not saying your product isn't important. I'm not saying you don't need product, service, solution. You do, because otherwise how are you going to meet their needs anyway? But the key thing here is value comes from your ability to transfer the value through using your product, service or solution.
Yeah, I think you're right. I remember kind of learning features, advantages, benefits, doing all that kind of stuff, and it probably felt more like somebody would invite you in to talk about your product or your service, with a view to wanting to buy from you. Whereas you can look at where we are now. A few years. There was some inverted commas there. A few years down,
grey hair or no hair in my case.
A few years down the line, and actually that's changed, hasn't it? It feels like for a lot of products, the market's much more competitive. It feels like the distinction, perhaps to the customer, the person buying, between 2 or 3 different products is minimal. So therefore, it has to be something other than just your features and benefits. It has to be on the value that if I'm buying for me, but if it's B2B sales, the value that my customers will get, almost like a through me. Yeah. So it becomes more complicated.
And I think this is the secret sauce, because most people think the reason we're successful is because we've got these products, services, solutions. But the reality is, to your point, so have your competitors. Yeah. But what the competitors don't have is you.
Yes.
And your ability to solve problems that matter for them. And if you can bridge that gap, you put yourself in a much more powerful position as the trusted advisor, as the person that matters, as the go-to person, that they might even ask about other things. So now then you become an influencing buyer for them because you become their reference site, or you become their, I just want to check what Graham thinks about this before I leap into that. And you and I both have clients that will ring you up and say, I'm thinking this, what do you think? And it might be not related to anything we do.
Yeah.
Because we've created a level of trust with our particular customers that they go, I just want a viewpoint.
Yeah.
I want a sense check.
I know someone I can talk to. It'll be,
With no skin in the game, with no agenda. I can be honest, I can be open, I can share my inner thoughts without worrying.
Yeah, yeah. So we're building relationships, we're switching the focus to them. We are still needing to match ultimately what we do to their needs. So we're kind of we're thinking about that, aren't we? What else then, if anything, what else do we need to be aware of?
I think this is really simple, and I think we overcomplicate it. I think if you can build strong relationships, if you can use your conversational questioning, to uncover what they care about, what matters most to them, that will uncover the opportunity for you. Because at this point, you're going, we're either in or out. We're qualifying ourselves in. We can help. We can do all these things. Because now when you say we can do this, you're hanging it onto something that matters for them. And then you might need to demonstrate that. You might need to show them how you can do it. But fundamentally, build relationships, understand them before you share what you can do. But when you do, it has to be in context with what's important to them. And one tip, if you can build a solution where they're involved in creating it, you can really leverage what they call the endowment effect, where they feel like the idea is theirs.
Yeah.
And that's what the good salespeople do.
Yeah. And that's how we move from product selling to value selling.
To value-led sales, yeah.
To find out how Thinking Focus can unlock the potential within your organization, go to www.thinkingfocus.com, where you'll discover more about the work we do, helping our clients increase productivity and enable change.